morning, everybody, in the newest issue of Cross Border Talks. My name is Małgorzata Kulbaczewska-Figat, and I am joining from Katowice, Poland. And today I will have the honor to host the talk with two outstanding journalists from Romania, Andrada Lautaru and Radu Stochita, working for Libertatea magazine, have authored a really moving investigation, a journalist investigation on how money is made from desperate people wishing to work in Europe, and more precisely from Nepalese workers coming to Romania. As the investigation has been republished by Cross Border Talks, so you can also find it on our website, but in case you prefer listening, watching to reading, we invited Andrada and Radu to speak about their findings today in this episode. And before we ask the first question, a personal moment from me. Apart from being a journalist, I have worked with migrants as well. I have an experience of working an interpreter and a person who facilitates legalizing of the foreigner stay in Poland. And reading this investigation, I had a feeling of a déjà vu. I had a feeling that despite time passing, the governments in our parts of Europe, the social services, have still been disinterested in solving the issue of people taking advantage of the foreigners' desperation to get a job in Europe and employers' desire to secure cheap labor from outside European borders. And as we see the dispute on migration increasingly channeled towards the cultural or identitarian questions, and the far right threatening everybody with foreigners who will destroy our traditional culture and lifestyle, the business is happy with securing cheap labor from outside Europe to pay less, to secure more profit, and not to care about these workers at all. So this was the personal moment for me, and now I welcome Andrada and Radu to the program. I'm very happy to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for inviting us. First of all, I would like to mention that this investigation was made together with two other colleagues, Diana Meseșan, my colleague from Libertatea, and we also collaborated with a Nepalese journalist based in Kathmandu. Her name is Muna Kumvar. So without them, this investigation wouldn't have been possible. But unfortunately, they cannot join us today. So we will speak in the name of the four of us. So just for a brief introduction as well, my name is Andrada Lautaru. I'm a Romanian journalist, and for the last 4 years, I've been working for Libertatea newspaper, which is the biggest newspaper in Romania. We also have a print version and the online edition. So yeah, this investigation that we are going to talk further on about was published last week. We divided it into two pieces. So the first chapter was published last week, and thank you for translating it into English. And next week or in the end of this week, possibly on Friday, we will publish the second episode also. So maybe we can today talk a bit about the first one, and then leave a bit of unknown for the second one. Radu, if you want to introduce yourself.
Sure. My name is Radu Stochita. I work as a freelance journalist. I was the one that pitched this story to one of the editors of Libertatea, to Julia Roșu, and a couple months later it saw the light of the print and of the online edition. I was initially in Kathmandu when I started documenting this, and the effort started with a couple of meetings I had with Nepalese families and Nepalese workers. When I was there on a scholarship, and they were complaining about this specific case that we published, about them being outside of Bucharest, not having access to anything, really not having a job, and being stuck in this house for a couple of months. And then I approached the newspaper. I knew the people there, and there was a lot of enthusiasm for the piece. And all four of us, plus the editorial team, we worked together for the past months to assemble something. I would say that hopefully will shape policy in the end. I mean, once we should raise awareness, but hopefully it will encourage the public authorities to actually take action.
Yes, I would be very happy to see public authorities actually being more active against such cases because although you start your story with individual histories, it becomes obvious from the very beginning that the story of the Nepalese workers is not a sad exception, but rather a part of the transnational fraud scheme. And could you explain how did the scheme work, who is behind it, and who are the affected, who are the people who suffered?
Should I or Radu? Do you want to start?
Go ahead, Andrada.
Okay. So basically, as Radu already mentioned, everything started in Nepal. So the scheme works more or less like this. There are these workers who want to come to Romania in order to have a better paid job, considering that the average salary in Nepal is less than how much is in euros? Uh, Less than 100 euros. Radu, is that correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so they pay around 3,500 euros to some agents. They call themselves self agents, even though they are not officially legally affiliated to any agency. But these agents, most of the cases, in the case of the Nepalese workers who came to Romania and that we talked to, these agents are among their relatives or their neighbors, so they are people that they trust in. So they take money from the bank or loans from other people with a lot of income, interest. And after paying 3,500 euros, they get the promise that they will come to Romania in order to have unqualified jobs, because most of the people don't have any qualification, and they are honest about this. So they believe that after paying this amount of money, they will arrive in Romania, so they will work in the cleaning sector or like cooking. So the salaries that they are promised to receive are somewhere around 500, 600 euros per month. So it's a good deal, even though in their contract there's also some illegal stuff. For example, the fact that they uh, have to work for 6 days a week, and the normal working days in Romania are 5 days, not six. Also, the hours are extended in comparison with the legislation, but they accept all these conditions just for the sake of a better living. And just like to make a short parenthesis, this situation, and we also mentioned in our investigation, brought us all in the past somehow, because in the early 2000, a lot of Romanians were going to work in the West, and it was exactly the same scenario. They were paying thousands of euros with the promise that in a few months abroad they will have the chance to pay their debts and also increase their income. So yeah, the scheme starts with this. Going back to Nepal, the scheme starts with this agent that takes the money from the Nepalese workers willing to come to Romania, and after that they do all the papers. And this we discovered that in doing the papers they do a lot of fraud in terms of faking CVs. So even though they know that people are not qualified, they send them to qualified jobs. And this is exactly what happened in the case that we've documented. Uh, Around 20 workers, Nepalese workers, arrived in last summer in 2022 in Romania, and they were expected to be working as workshop helper. That was written in their contract, but they ended up to a construction company. So after that, everything fell down because they couldn't do the job. The company owner of the construction says also that he was cheated by the Nepalese agents who told him that he will get qualified workforce. So the authorities also didn't help these people. So when we first met them in January, like 7 months ago, they were in this legal limbo in which they didn't even have the papers yet. They were living with money that their families back in Nepal was sending to them just to have something to eat. And yeah, it was a complete chaos. So just to sum up, the scheme starts in Nepal with these agents who sell dreams on a large amount of money, and in the end the scam continues with agencies, sorry, and including Romanian owners of companies who are in searching for cheap workforce.
Yeah, the lives of the migrant workers in Romania are dominated by uncertainty. What we did in this investigation is we uncovered, I mean, building on the work of other journalists and activists from the past, we uncovered once again the fact there's quite a long chain of people, of institutions, of informal groups that basically the information gets lost along the way. So the first contract that they sign in Nepal, for example, but I think the same can apply for many other migrant workers, is a very different one than the ones that actually ends up in Romania at the authorities. The legal aspects that Andrada just mentioned, in fact, cannot make the case of a valid contract in Romania. You cannot sign a contract where it says you're going to work 12 hours a day or 10 hours a day for 6 days. That's not going to be registered automatically. What ends up happening actually is that they get tricked into believing that this is what the working conditions of the country are going to be. And because of a lack of interest from the Nepali government, from our own government, from the employers themselves to teach those people about their rights, they end up in a situation where they put up with anything and everything because it's just the way things are, and it's gonna be a bit better than what it is like in Nepal for them, at least money wise.
Yeah,
Another
and
issue that sorry, go ahead, Andrada.
no, sorry, it's a bit confusing with this
No,
name.
no, I was. I think what we did with the chain is very important because that should be a formula that needs to be applied and not only applied but like needs to be like the base for I think an investigation concerning migrant workers because I think what my initial idea in the beginning was to blame the Romanian employers, but after our journalists have conducted interviews with them, we realized that they were also, I don't want to believe that they were necessarily tricked, but there was a lot of lacking information on their side as well because of some informal groups that were part in the middle of recruiting those people, placing them, and so on and so forth. So there is a whole, let's say, dark area where we do not know that much about, and only by conducting those investigations we're actually going to be able to see how complicated and long the migration chain is, because it's not simply Romanian government, Nepali government, it's Nepali government, five people, Romanian government or Romanian employer.
Yeah, and another aspect, it's the fact that some of the contracts are just in Romanian or most of them in English, and the language is a big barrier for them in order to understand and can shout out for their rights. So we saw during our investigation, we saw from the same person three contracts, one in Romanian and two in English, and each of them were having different signatures, different offers, and they said they signed them in in a hotel room before coming to Romania, before flying. So like the main ingredients are that these people really trust the first agent, the intermediate, and then they trust him so much that they agree to sign a contract in a language that they don't understand. And talking about the language barrier, we also discovered that the institutions, the Romanian institutions like immigration service and labor forces that are responsible for giving them legal rights and permits, work permits to stay and work in Romania. They don't have any Nepalese speaking workers. So this makes their situation even more vulnerable because they cannot speak in any language that is comfortable to them, and the documents are in a foreign language, so makes their situation even more harder.
I know it is difficult to speak about numbers, but you mentioned in your investigation how did the number of employment notices grow and how bringing foreign workers to Romania became a whole new area of activity. I mean, you write that they were very rare. There were rare cases. There were just a few thousand of Nepalese citizens coming to Romania to work, and now this number has grown in by 100 or more. So my question would be, how big is this gray zone or this dark area that you have just mentioned? How many people in maybe involved or maybe hurt by these schemes, by these transnational fraud schemes?
Yeah, so
Yeah,
like
so like
I also
I also
prepared this number because it's important. So in 2017, they were less than 5,000 workers, Nepalese workers in Romania, and by 2022, last year, their number increased 22 times. So now we are speaking about more than 100,000. It's hard to say how much many of them are having their promised job, or after passing into a situation that we discuss that as the one that we talked about in our investigation, managed to find another job. But the fact is that we cannot talk about numbers. Not even the authorities have these numbers, but we can talk about our living experience. And for example, in Bucharest, in the center, there is a park, Uniri Park, and if you pass there every day or in the weekends, you see tens of people from Nepal just hanging around drinking a soda there. So this wasn't happening 2 years ago. So you see them; they are visible in the metro, in the park. So their number, it's super increased. It's really increased in the last years. And also our colleague Diana Meseshan, together with another colleague Daniel Ionashcu, published another investigation a couple of weeks ago about the situation of Glovo workers, because many of them are working for Glovo. So you see, like, I don't know, I don't like talking about numbers that I don't know, but I would risk saying that 1 in 3 Glovo deliveries in Bucharest nowadays are Asian workers, is Asian worker.
Yeah, we start seeing them everywhere. I do not reside in Bucharest. I come from a smaller town, and I see them around here as well. And in Bucharest, I mean, even in the nightlife, they end up becoming strong participants, especially in the places where there is no entrance fee. So, for example, the old town, the main touristic attraction for foreigners. For example, if you go through one of those streets, you'll find a lot of Nepalese workers, lots of Indian workers that just sit in front of the bars and try to observe the people, and sometimes they partake in the dancing and drinking. With regards to the numbers, honestly, it could be extremely, I don't know, valuable for the governmental institutions, for the international migration office, or however it's called, to do their job and research those people. But over and over again, what we find out is that the work that gets done for migrants, is often done by migrants themselves in some kind of informal way. Journalists, as we are doing, by transnational groups. So let's say there are people in Nepal that might want to help those peoples and identify where they live in precarious living conditions, send them some money, try to pressure some people, or just like some activist groups, but they're on the fringes at this point. So because there are just not enough people and there is not a lot of governmental intervention into this, it's very hard for us to actually be able to grasp the number. If I may add something, we've mentioned that the number of them has increased and probably will also continue to increase because there is also a lot of misinformation regarding the how many jobs we are not able as a country to fill up. So There are lots of people, including the ex-minister of labor, used to say a couple of months ago that there are 1 million jobs we're not able to find Romanians for, even though the governmental body for the employment force, I would say that might be the accurate translation, says we only have 60,000. So because of this misinformation and this actual lack of understanding, they're able to push for this narrative that we need to open up for more people to come. We can decide if this is good or bad depending on each of our own political beliefs, but basically based on that, they're not necessarily doing more to integrate them into the country, to help them with the transition. They just want to bring them here and let the employers do whatever they want with them, basically.
Yeah, so also the thing, as you asked before about the chain of people, there are so many people involved, starting from Nepalese authorities to Nepalese agents to Romanian authorities to Romanian employers. And in the end, what we discovered with this story, with the people that we talked to, they were left alone. So we saw hundreds of attempts of them talking to someone from Nepal, from with the Nepalese consulate in Romania. No one answered to them for months and months, and like their last resort after contacting a television from Nepal, because they also, their story was also streamed in January when we met first time with them in Nepal. Nothing changed, and then they had trust, and we are really grateful for them opening up to us and trusting us and giving us all the documents that they were having, and that was their last resort. And yeah, as we will publish in the second chapter of our investigation, some of the people from this group, we don't know today if they are still in Romania, if they are still working. So we know about a couple of them that they managed eventually, after a year of effort, to come to another job, a job that was proper for them. But some of them, yeah, we lost track of also. So talking about numbers, it's so hard to keep a track, because there's no legal assurance. There's no way to do this.
What you have said gives a very sad impression of a state that keeps no track of people coming and disappearing into Romanian territory, a state which does not care about exploitation of foreigners coming to work here, which has, I could say, no coherent migration policy, and apparently leaves things to their own ways without caring if people are hurt, if people disappear here, if people are forced to work. And I would ask you why it is so. Why is the Romanian state indifferent? I understand that there are also other actors in this story, but let's focus on the Romanian state for a moment. What is the main reason for this failure? Is it indifference? Is it lack of resources? Is it lack of knowledge? Of what grounds would you name?
I think it's a mixture of the three. And I mean, just as an example, when we went with the workers that we wrote about at the immigration office, we talked to with an employee there, and he told us that the number of employees at the immigration office is the same as it was in 2017. But as we discussed in the beginning of our meeting, the number of people applying for these permits increased by 22 uh, 22 times. Sorry. So yeah, I don't know which are the main reasons for which the Romanian government state doesn't involve and I don't know, takes other legal actions in order to make the living not only for the but for the immigrants coming to Romania easier, but also for the people working in the Romanian institutes that have a direct contact with them. So yeah, the lack of personnel, it's also a fact. So I guess it's a mixture of the three reasons that you mentioned when you asked us the question. I don't know if Radu has other thoughts.
I fully agree. I mean, we've witnessed once again a couple of weeks ago. It started a couple of months ago, maybe years, an investigation into the care homes for people with disabilities, and we've seen once again how people turned a blind eye, how there were, like, let's say, local networks of influence that stopped the authorities from actually intervening where they should have. So I do not know if it's as grave as, if it's as bad as it was in those cases, but definitely there is a combination of all three of them, and I fully believe that if the state, I don't know, like, if they were to engage in a very, I mean, it all starts from the mentality and the methodology as well, because if we want to have a state or a group, let's say, for migrant workers inside of the government that works on at their benefit, wants to integrate them, wants to make them have a good life here, then that would be very different than if we have a punitive state that just wants to get their data to, like, send them out of the country if they overstay their permit by a week or something. So I think that's also very important to see. But right now, the Romanian state has no, I mean, has a strategy on migration, probably the same way it has one on cancer treatment and on disabled people. But what do we do with that? We do nothing. Like, it just exists as a document.
The cheap states of Central Eastern Europe, for it is not only a Romanian problem, end up not only as the areas where the locals can't count on good wages and stable jobs, but also as the areas where foreign workers are invited to work and then left without resources. This is an unexpected, perhaps not so unexpected, result of making states cheap, making cuts on state administrations, and basically turning these areas into reservoirs of cheap labor force, native or brought from outside Europe. I can only at this point encourage everybody listening to us to listen to read the second part of the investigation as soon as it appears in Romanian and I hope also in English on our website. And I can only congratulate Andrada, Radu, and their co-workers who were not today with us for the job they made on this investigation. And I join your hopes to see it influence the reality, not only raise awareness, but also make somebody who makes decision think that this is absolutely not something that should be happening. So thank you very much for being us today.
Can I say one more thing? It
Yeah,
actually is in your name of the publication, Cross-Border Talks. Cross-border is a very, I think, important approach we put into this article, and I think it should be employed everywhere in those kind of investigations, because there is a core local component in Romania, of course, but we must also speak to the people from the country that they're coming from, to also understand their local context, which is very important, because there is often a very big misunderstanding when it comes, let's say, to migrant workers. And that misunderstanding is that when they come here, they have it much better than they have it in their home country, because there is just full poverty over there, and here there is some prosperity, which is completely false, because here they have no support mechanism, and there they have the family, the village, and so on and so forth. And by being able to talk to some people from there, experiencing their daily lives, living there for a bit, is also going to bring such a humane perspective to the story, which I think is what we need, because we don't only want to show the facts, but we want to humanize those people that have been numbers for so long. They are just numbers in the eyes of many people in Romania.
And sometimes not even numbers, even though it's cynical, as we discussed, no one keeps track of. And I also want to add something in order to sum up on a more optimistic, maybe, talk, because maybe change takes time, but I think a good first step, it's also the thing that we managed to talk to so many people and they trusted us. So also thank you so much for translating our investigation so it can reach more audience, and yeah, I hope that their voices, after being written, they will not be shut down again. So yeah, I truly hope that this is just the first step about talking. The first step was talking and writing about it, and maybe not long from now we will see some actual changes So yeah, we will keep writing, that's for sure. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And at the end, I wanted to encourage everybody to support cross-border talks so that we are able to amplify even more voices, cross-border voices doing this kind of good jobs. We can raise more awareness. We can contribute to social change even more. Thank you again for being with us, and see you again.